Welcome to the ChessWhiz Arcade, episode 3. Today we are building on to our video game, JavaScript video game called Uprising. So far we have a knight moving around capturing things. We want to add more cool stuff to that for sure. The things that they capture, the enemy pawns, are going to be growing over time into larger and larger enemy pieces, which adds a moment of urgency to the game. Right now you can't really win or lose or anything, so hopefully by the end of this episode we'll have all those things and we'll have almost a playable game, which is a big step ahead of where we are right now. We're going to start though with some kind of behind the scenes work, making some small changes that you can't really tell when you're playing the game, but it's important to prepare for future features. So let's get started. This is a view of the entire desktop of ChessWhiz, and now we can see everything we have. So if we browse to chesswiz.tv, the main website, and click Arcade, we can see the task list. And that's what we're going to be working on today, of the Uprising task. I've divided this out into nice to-do next episode. Now you'll see that that is like almost as much as there is to do for the rest of the show. Hopefully we actually are able to do all this stuff. It's very ambitious, but I'm an ambitious person, so I hope we can do that. Let's start at Visual Studio. We'll start with the top of the list. Where did my list go? There it is. We're starting with JavaScript Minification and Bundling. This is the JavaScript files that are loaded into the game. Right now, each one is a separate file, and it is not minified, which means all of the text is being downloaded. That allows people to steal my code because they could just download it and look at it. If I minify it, that makes it smaller by shrinking up the variable names, and I can bundle all of those files into one file. So I don't think this will take very long. I've put it in progress now. The idea is first check in what I've got here. Twitch. Work on my Twitch service. I was working on my Twitch service, which is why I have those files changed. But now I'm working on my thing. So let's get started. JavaScript bundling. So here in the Uprising page, I'm loading all of these scripts. You see the Asset Manager, Keyboard Manager, Globals, Globals, Piece, Board, Player, and World. There's two globals because one is common shared between all arcade games, one out of one, and one is in Uprising. So we're going to load all of these dynamically, or rather all at once, using MVC's fancy bundler. So this is a ASP.NET project, ASP.NET MVC, which is in C#. And here in, well, not in my bin folder. Let's hide the unused files. Here in my app start, I have something called bundle config, and this is built into the new MVC 5, I believe is the current version, which is a bundler. So all I need to do is add a new bundle to the bundler. Bundles.add new, and it's going to be a script bundle. Obviously, my choices are script bundles and style bundles, so let's add a script bundle. And I have to give it a name, so let's give it Uprising scripts. Bundles, but okay, script bundle, you pass in /bundles. Let's just do that. I don't even think there's such a folder, so this is a virtual folder, /Uprising. And then what do you do? So let me make this look like the other one, because obviously I'm just going to do the same kind of thing as here. And then .include. Got a problem with that? Include. And now I'm going to include all of my paths to all the files. So let's grab all of those files. Here they are. Now watch how quickly I can do this. This is the scripts that I'm doing. I've cut those. Now watch me paste them here. Wow, the alignment is all wrong and the paths are all wrong. But no problem. I use my Alt key. I draw a giant square. And bam, I got those strings selected out. Now this section is a little bit harder to do. So let's select this and then go Control H for search and replace. And let's replace right angle bracket, left angle bracket, /script, right angle bracket with quote. No, I already have the quote with comma. Let's do that right now. Just in the selection. Ready? Nice all. Bam! Look at that. And the replacement is done. So tab these in. And I've pulled in all those paths. Now hopefully those are correct paths. They look pretty good. They've got the tilde for the home thing. So I think that's just super fast, super easy. I do see I have a compilation error, but I think I'm just missing a parentheses closing thing. Okay, so now I've created a new script bundle, and it's called bundle/uprising. Very similar to my bundles jQuery and my bundles, other bundles, my other things in here. So now let's see how to use it. I'm going to go to my layout page. Here's all it does is at scripts.render and then pass in the bundle name. So we'll just take that and we'll put it where we stole all of my bundles, all my script references from, which is right here. Now what do I, obviously I need to render the name that I passed in here. I mean, I haven't even done any of this before. This is the first time I've used the ASP.NET bundler, but clearly, the MVC bundler, but clearly it works exactly like this. So let's build that and see how it works. I'm running it, and I'm browsing to localhost. so I can see it. Is it going to work? Play now. It didn't work very well. I'm looking for errors. Keyboard manager is not defined. I'm going to guess that's because the bundler didn't run, right? So let's check now. Debugging session begin. Here's the main page. Maybe the bundler has to be in the head section. Scripts.render, maybe that has to be in it. No, let me see what it rendered. It was right before all my main JavaScript here. Okay, it's right in here. So it looks like it rendered bootstrap and respond and then nothing. Right after my canvases. So here's right after my canvases, it rendered bootstrap and respond. That's really weird. Why would it render those? Let's look at my config again. It rendered bootstrap. It rendered this one. Did I tell it to render? Oh, look at that. I told it to render the bootstrap. Render Uprising, please. What an idiot. Let's try it again with rendering the correct bundle. Bam! It just works. So ASP.NVC is just doing all this work for me. Here is the game. So this is what we've got so far. Knight can move around. And I should have demonstrated this at the beginning of the video, just so if you're watching on YouTube, you can get or immediately know what we're working on, where we are right now. But we've got resizing board. We've got a knight that can move. And by the way, guys, if you press the letter M, that's a secret attack code, you can add pawns to the board with the letter M. Which is a cheat to make the game harder, because that's what cheats are supposed to do. So now you can take these pawns and more appear as they're captured, and it works. It works. So let's go to the task list, see what we're working on next. We already finished minification and bundling, so now let's check that in and say minification and, oh, wait a minute, bundling. I don't think that it did minify and bundle it, because I don't think it's minified and bundled, which is probably good because I actually want to be able to debug. So it did not it did not minify or bundle. It just put the include there, right? Where's my main index? Right here. So all it did was, here's my, can I please see that page again? It put script references, so it did not bundle. So why didn't it bundle all into one file? I would like it to do that. It didn't actually bundle. How do you activate MVC bundling, please? Oh, it's because I'm in debug mode, right? So let's try it with debug mode off in the web config. Compilation debug equals true. So let's take that out. That is a little flag in the website that says, okay, so apparently I need to have at least one space there. A little flag in the website that says that we're in debug mode, so that's going to cause it to show me all my code, which is really nice. So now let's refresh and just see how it looks when we're not in debug mode. And the way it looks is, it actually does this. It says script source equals /bundle/uprising, and then version is this really long string. So it actually shrank it all down. And now let's look at what it created for us. Here's a bundles folder, and here is Uprising. So it created this thing for us. So it actually did bundle and it all into one file. Now it didn't minify it. As you can see, all of my code is not minified. The variable names are not shrunk down. They are fully, although there is u.x, u.y. Maybe it's just because all my variables are in the public scope, so it can't rename them. Yeah, it did a little bit. See, r.successCount, I would never do that. That's interesting. Just flashing through here, just looking at my code. It's all in one line, which is great. Yeah, so you could see the private variables are shrunk, like n dot, but so much is considered public by the program that it's not renaming those for fear of naming collisions in the public namespace, which is blah, 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 for it didn't quite work. But to do that, I need to change my namespaces around, which I don't want to do right now. So we're not on lead chess anymore. So let's close a couple of these tabs. So bundling and minification is done, but let's add a new task for later, which is move code into a namespace to enable better minification. because the variable names are not being minified because it's saying, oh, that'll cause a naming collision against the JavaScript core library. That's my theory anyway, but that's not what I'm going to do right now. Now I'm going to do task number 2 for this episode, disable right-click context menu. So if you have any questions in the chat, feel free to ask them in the chat. I'm watching the chat of the stream right now. Because I've got it up right here next to me. And if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to ask questions in the YouTube comments below. I'll be sure to answer those straight away because I'm such a nice guy. How do you disable a right-click context menu on anything? So for example, I right-click here, I can open it in a new tab, that's great. I right-click here, I can save this image. I don't want that, instead I want to make nothing happen. And that's just so that people don't get themselves menus popping up while they're trying to play. So it's pretty easy to disable context menu. Because all you have to do is ask the internet how to do that. Never read the question, guys, by the way. You go to Stack Overflow and you're like, oh, is this the right question? No, doesn't matter. You just look at the answer. Can't capture the on-context menu event, return false in the event handler. So that's the event right there. Let's go. Oh, let's check in this code. Add minification bundling. Done. Checked into my private source control. No one can see my code now. So now I want to make sure when you right-click on this canvas, you don't get a context menu. Actually, I want to make sure you right-click on the body, you don't get a context menu. Because if you right-click over here, I also don't want something to pop up. I just want the whole right-clicky stuff to be disabled because this is not a website, it's a game. So I'm pretty reticent to put it right here in my main function. Because everything's there right now. So I think I'll put it in my globals, my main globals file, because then my common globals. Then every code that, every program that references this globals, and all of my programs will. I need a video manager, audio manager. Okay, so now I disable right-click context menu. It's going to happen right here, which is it's just some code that says run some jQuery and find the body tag, and then go on context menu. Can you on? I don't think you can do it this way. I was going to go on context menu inside the HTML tag, but I can't get the body HTML tag here. As you can see, it's not in this page because I have a parent page that is like the frame around that page. So this is JavaScript programming. So I want to add on, I want to go on context menu jQuery because I've got the object by using jQuery. Yep, that's what you do. You just say jQuery.on context menu. See, like this, jQuery, that's the same as $body.on context menu. Let's just do it like that. Looks like I've already done that. And then a function, return false. So this code, what this does is it finds the body element and it says whenever the context menu command is fired on that element, which is the whole page, it runs this function. And all the function does is return false, which tells the browser don't do anything, which means don't show the context menu. Let's see if that works. Look at that. It works in one try. No bugs, no nothing. Just totally working on the first try. If only all of programming were that easy. You can now not bring up the context menu. Done. And in fact, I want to copy this text. Done. And put it here as my checking comment, because that's exactly what I did. Done. Done with that. Done with my services. Wow. Making fast progress. Let's see what's next. Add touchscreen support. That's going to be difficult to test because I don't have a touchscreen. Oh, I do have a touchscreen device here. Great. Let's try that. It's not going to take long at all because I think there's just an on touch down event. Oh, look, I've already been here. Touch start and touch move. So I already have a thing that says when the mouse moves in an area. Where is that? Main canvas.mouse move, and it calls world.mouse move. So we're going to go main canvas.touch start. Is that what it's called? It's called touch start. And it's going to call, and you know what? You don't have to do a function here. can just put world.mouseMove right in here. Pass it the name of that function. I think that will work. KK, enter. That's not what I meant to type. I meant to press delete, but my keyboard's super weird. So now when you do mouse move or touch start, it'll call mouse move. I think all this will do is break the mouse, but let's find out. Refresh that. Everything's broken. And there is a 93 bugs. Touch start is not a function. Well, let's not try to call a function that doesn't exist. So the mouse move did not work. So I think I'll actually copy this code and then undo all of the pain I've done. I want to keep this function the way it is. And I think the way to do an event that doesn't have a function is .on, and then you pass touch start, and then like this. So it says when the touch start event occurs, then do that. So let's see if this works. Mouse works, and we don't know if touch start is going to work or not. Let's look at the parameters to touch start. And then also touch move, which means you drag your finger along, and we should support moving that way as well. So we're going to call this touch move. Actually, we're going to make a different function for this. It's going to be difficult to appreciate this because we're not on a touch screen right now, but we'll just live with it. Client X. Client X is the X position of the touch point relative to the left edge of the browser. Touch object. Let's look up more about touch start because I really want to get the X and Y coordinates properly. That's not the question I want, and I can tell by reading the answer. Here's a kind of a bloggy sort of thing about touch. It's good to be able to support touch on your game for people on phones and tablets and that kind of thing. Event.prevent default, probably a good idea. Number of touches. Oh, that's interesting. I think I'll just use the first touch because they could touch it with multiple touches. That's a problem. So let's start with this function, and we'll call it touch move. We'll just call it world.touch. Now let's go to the world and make the thing that is calling. Here we have that.mouseMove. We're going to say that.touch. E is event. So first we're going to prevent the action of that E. Then we can count the touches. Now that's not a very useful program. I don't want to count the touches. I want to know where I was touched. Most people want to know that. So let's take a look at some more internet. Here's an example. Yeah, we've got all those touch events. Learning to program while streaming is always exciting. Change touches, loop through all the touches. So guys, I didn't anticipate that I would have multiple touches. I figured, well, you touch, that's a lot like a mouse move. So I'm realizing this is a bigger task than I had previously anticipated because I need to make sure I'm reacting to the right touch. If the player has two fingers on the screen, and they move with one of them, I think I'm going to get an event that says, okay, you've got a list of touches and here's what they are. And that's really a little bit more complicated than I had anticipated. It's not too difficult to deal with, but I think it's not something that's a high priority right now. So I'm going to go ahead and say that touchscreen support is going to be in a to-do and not to-do right now. So now that that's been moved out, I'll just put that in as a to-do. And here is some bad braces. Bad braces are pretty painful. And now nothing happens. So let's save everything and try the game. Make sure we didn't break anything. So I do have events which will get hit here, but all they do is to prevent the default action, which means you can't scroll, I believe, anymore with touch, because the default action is to allow scrolling the page. So that's nice that I've disabled that, but started work on touch support. I am not going to finish that. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. So the to-do little tag here says I need to support touchscreens, and I'm going to consider that to be done-ish. So we'll move that from already did. Where's my touch support? Right there. We'll move it way down here at the bottom of the to-do list. Okay, great. That's just as good as doing something, is saying you'll do it later. Next, refactor player to inherit from piece. I changed my mind on that, so we will move that. We will archive that, which is code for delete. So we're not going to do that. Now we get on to the interesting stuff, guys. This is now where we're actually going to do some things that the player can see a difference of. Because right now the game is the same as when I started. So fun all the way home. Build clock manager for low-level control of frames elapsed. Right now, I don't really know what game frame I'm on. The game starts when as soon as the page loads, and it's like the frames are going 60 frames a second, go, 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 go. But there's no call that says which frame am I on, because I need to keep track of like the age of something. So I want to add a manager to manage kind of like the time that has elapsed, and also just kind of keep track of that kind of thing, so I can get a better idea of the synchronization of the game. So we're going to do that right now. So now this gets interesting. It's going to be in common, which means every arcade game is going to use it. And I'm going to add a new JavaScript file. I know you can't see that menu, just have to bear with me. We're going to call it clock manager. Now the first thing we can do is move some things out of the globals, because I've got a request animation frame thing, which is kind of controlling the frame rate. And that obviously can go inside here. This is the way JavaScript works to make functions. You just make functions like this. Whoa. Yeah, look at all those parentheses. Lots of parentheses. So now I need to make myself a clock manager over in globals. And I'm going to put the clock manager on the right side there. Now I've got lots of room. I'm going to var clock manager equals new clock manager. Okay, so we already have a clock manager. Let's see if that breaks everything. It will. So the next thing we need to do is include that in our bundler, which now we have a bundler, so that's cool. It needs to be included really early on, even before the asset manager. Okay, now that's automatically going to be included there. Next thing is let's turn off debug mode in the web config. Turn back on debug mode, I mean. So that we can see the JavaScript for debugging it purposes. Build that, because otherwise everything's going to be minified and bundled, and we won't be able to see the JavaScript. I have a feeling we're going to need that JavaScript to be able to debug better. You're right, DVRaiser, we do need to add a start button before playing. That I don't think is going to happen this episode. It is manage game states ready, running game over, like a ready game state before you actually start playing. It's probably not going to happen. But look, there's only 2 things left, so we might get to that next if we finish everything we're doing so quickly. So now this is going to break because somebody is calling this function and it just moved. Whoops. So let's do a search everything for this function. It's being called right here. Oh, this is the start function here in world, and I actually want to move start out as well because I want to start the clock rather than start the world. So I'm going to move this start function out to here. Is that going to be possible? Thinking about this, it is accessing, the world. So I might have a problem accessing world from my clock manager. Not going to use this at all. Just always going to start. Because that's old code that doesn't need to exist. So I'm going to pass in a loop function and a canvas. And so when you say, this is the button. So when you say, okay, clock, start the game, I'm going to tell it two things. I'm going to tell it what game loop should you run 60 times a second, and what canvas will you be drawing on. So now it's going to call loop, or that equals this, that. And so this allows the context to stay inside when you come in outer loop. So it's going to call loop, which is this thing. And it's going to then this dot request animation frame, which is now inside here. And this might all break. I don't think I need that equals this. Need to pass that in again. It's going to wait till all the assets are loaded. Every 15 milliseconds, it's going to try again. And this is just the canvas. I have a feeling this is going to horribly not work. And this dot board dot draw does not need to happen, because the loop will call draw. So it calls start. It takes the loop function and the canvas element. Wow, you can just pass functions around like this. First, it's going to say, is everything loaded, like all the images and sounds and everything? If it hasn't, then wait 50 milliseconds and then call the same thing again. Wait, in return. So wait, go. It's going to come down here, make a function called outer loop, which calls loop and then waits for another frame, calls loop, waits for another frame, waits for another frame. This could all work. Whoops, refresh the to-do list. And everything's broken. World.start is not a function. Oh, I'm still calling world.start. So let's remove that. It is right here. Instead, we're going to go clock manager.start. And we need to pass in world.loop and world has a reference to it now. It's kind of bad practice to pass in the world's canvas, but I'm going to. So the world should contain its own thing. So to say, oh, I'm just going to reach inside of you and take that canvas out and pass it on, it's a little bit rude, because that should be a private property and not so exposed to the page itself. But I'm doing it. This dot page is not a function. Now it's getting ugly. Maybe I shouldn't do any of this. The problem here is it's calling my loop. Here's my loop. But it's coming from the context of my start over here. So when I say this, I actually don't think it's a world. I think it's a clock manager. Let me just see if that's true. What is it, this? It is the window. So I've totally lost the context of the world, which I can solve, which maybe I will try it by taking world.loop and putting it inside the constructor here. That.loop equals function. And all the this has become that's, which the best way to do that is to turn this into that. so making sense to me. So now all the thises have become that's. Let's just see if it works. If it doesn't, I can roll it all back. So now this is still the window. Oh, this is now the world. Oh, that's because my breakpoint moved to a different spot. Kind of worked. It drew the pieces and not the board. This request.animation frame is not a function. That's because this is not that thing. So I'm getting a reference to the clock manager here. This is JavaScript for you, JavaScript 101, or JavaScript 909 because it's so bad. Illegal invocation. Oh, why would I do an illegal invocation? That seems so... I've never heard of that bug before. Never heard of illegal invocation. Let's just look that up. Oh, and look, someone else has a problem with request animation frame. Maybe I shouldn't even have a clock manager. It just felt nice to have everything in one place as opposed to in globals. This is painful. So you cannot execute request animation frame. You cannot execute window.request animation frame from outside the window context. think. Let's look at another question about that. Bind will help you solve the problem. Oh, I can use bind and call to change my context. Well, let's see if I can do that in the first try. Bind window. I think I can do it right here. I think I can return this blob. I'm as lost as you guys are. Bind window. Yes, ha ha ha, I can, and now it runs. So I fixed that with the power of the internet. Now there is a problem, which would be it is not drawing the board. And I consider that to be not as good. So why can't I call that .paint? Why can't paint access the board? Clear the entire camera. Oh, paint doesn't draw the board. Oh, I took that line of code out, didn't I? A good way to get code back is actually to use source control. So I'm going to go in my globals and say source control, view history. Here's all the changes I've made on that file. Source control is useful. You should use it. This is a way to save changes you've made in the past. Here we could see the, oh, that's not where it is. It's in world. So let's see history of world. Let's go back a few steps. The call is this .draw background, right? Where's this function? Draw background. Does it exist? No. So I guess I've gone too far back in the history. Did I just totally delete? Come here, draw background. What is draw background? Loop, paint, move, spawn. What in the world? A piece of my program is missing. The part that draws the chessboard. Oh. It's this .board.draw that I'm actually missing. Draw background never worked. There is no such thing as draw background. No wonder I couldn't find it. I just need to go like this. This.board.draw. You know what? I don't want to be passed in the loop. I want to be passed in the world. Because then I can say world.loop. It's just going to need to be called loop. And world.board.draw. That is so hacky. I can't have this in globals because... You know what? I can call world.init though. That sounds pretty legit. Right? So now whenever I call this, I need to pass in the world. It's no problem. I'm passing in the world right now. World. Okay. Now I'm calling something called init, so I need to make something called init. There's something called reset. Is that the same as init? Reset. And let's rename that to paint while we're at it. Board, this should be called paint. So here's the function I was missing. So everything will now work and the board will be back. Board, come back! Crash. Loop's not defined. I don't care. I need this to be world.loop. Oh, it just passed world again. There we are. Okay, everything's back. So we have succeeded in doing nothing. Massage my neck since doing nothing is hard work. We have made a game that's identical to the current game. The difference is the timer is now in its own clock manager function. So now we can do interesting things like add a tick. And this should just be part of the world, shouldn't it? So bad. Tick is how many frames have gone past. Now it's good to have it pulled out here because I'm going to need to control the timing of the game pretty robustly. That's a word. I realize all the viewers are leaving. That's okay. I'm just having fun programming. So if you're bored right now, you're perfectly permitted to leave. You can check back in a few hours. I'll probably still be streaming, and you can also check the game. I'm going to update the game onto the website. So browse to ChessWhiz.tv and click arcade. And when you click play, you'll be playing the new version. And so if you want to know what's happened, you can check the task list. Otherwise, you don't have to watch me program. But I'm just streaming for you guys' benefit. You can see what it takes to make a game because I've streamed pretty much every step of this game so far. So if you're wondering how I even got this far, episodes 1 and 2 is how I did it. So now I'm struggling with managing the frames. And I'm starting with the 0th frame. And then here I'm calling loop and calling animation frame, which waits till the next, waits enough milliseconds. So now after calling loop, I'm going to say this dot plus plus, which increments it by 1. And the reset is going to set tick to 0. Now that's not going to be that potent. So I need to know actually how many I need to get the current time. Like, this is date though, and I need the time. I need it in milliseconds. Milliseconds for 1970. That sounds good. Yes. That's a lot of milliseconds since 1970. But okay, nice breakdancing. We're going to actually do that. This dot start ms. It hasn't started. Start milliseconds, and then when we start, which is right here, we're going to say start milliseconds. This is how you do it in JavaScript. Not any other language, that's for sure. Pick a new date and set the start milliseconds to the current time. So that is not going to help me at all. I don't think I really care how many milliseconds have passed, do I? I am going to care when I have networked play and two computers need to have the same start millisecond. But the server will tell them that. The server does, and there's no server right now, so I think I can just track the tick number. Okay, so the game starts at tick 0. Then I run the first loop, which runs at tick 0, and then I go tick is 1, and then I wait, then I run the loop again, say tick is 2. So the first frame of the game is going to happen at tick 0, and then the second frame at tick 1, and the third frick at tick, tick at turn 3, etc. And that's important because now we can keep track of the age of everything in terms of how many ticks have gone past. If we say, well, how old is this pawn? Well, we can say, well, it was created on tick 60, and now we're at tick 65, so it's 5 ticks old, which is 5 frames, which is, well, it's 60 frames per second, so that's going to be not very many ticks. But anyway, that gives us a way to manage the time of the game. So that's not the right keyboard shortcut to bring me back to the desktop view. There we go, desktop view. Okay, so now we kind of have a clock manager. I actually think that's all that the clock manager needs. So we'll close this, close this, close this, close this, close this. Look at all that stuff we've done. I would say that the clock manager is done. Now we should probably test it. Great idea, let's test it. Let's put an element on the I've got a debug div. It's a div and it's called debug div, okay? And it's sitting right there above the canvases. And it currently has letters in it. Let's see how it looks. There they are. See that? Okay. So now we're going to put the tick number in there. use jQuery to find that thing. It is called debug div. This is going to be so useful. Dot value and then tick. I think that's going to put the current tick number there, and it didn't at all. Well, maybe dot text. You never know with jQuery which one's going to do it. Not a number. Can't believe it. Starting at 0, so why would it be not a number? That's terrible. Totally a number. It did change, but it changed to not a number. So let's get our debugger out and see what it should change to. Oh, look, here we are, right where we need to be. Bam! Why is tick not a number? Refresh the page. What about back here? This dot tick equals 0. This is the clock manager. Okay, right? Step. Because this is no longer, look, when I'm inside here, this is so obnoxious. This is now the window. So this dot tick is referencing the Windows tick. So of course the window doesn't have a tick. It has to be that dot tick because that is this. So this is the way that and this work in JavaScript. I know if you don't use JavaScript, this is going to be obnoxious and annoying, and it's not going to make any sense. But basically inside this loop, the word this references the object that you're in context of. So it's actually the page, the window, when you're in here. So while you're out here, it's the clock manager. So I say that equals this. That makes that the clock manager context. So now when I go that dot tick, it becomes the clock manager context. So that is not a special keyword. It's just a variable name that I use for that purpose. But this is a keyword, and it references the current object context. So now it crashes for a different reason, which is I missed it over here. Look at those ticks going by, and let's count. How many frames per second? Difficult to count those, huh? They're going kind of fast. Well, if it were 60 frames per second, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000, 7, 1,000, 8, 1,000. Really looks like 60 frames per second, doesn't it? But if I look here, it is actually doing 1 second divided by 60. 60 frames a second. I think it's keeping up too. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Definitely seems to be about keeping up. So I would definitely call that a win. So we're going to take that out. Debug div I'm going to leave around. I'm just going to put no text in it. So there's a div over there. You just can't see it. And that's going to be useful if I ever want to see something. I'll just say, put it in there, and then I'll see it. So that'll be great. So now clock manager is done. Added a clock manager to track the current game frame, and that is checked in. So now I can say that is done. Now the promotional work is done. Promotional. Now the preparatory work. Now the preparatory work of this game is completed. We have created a timer manager. We've done a few small things like removing the context menu. We decided not to add touch support. And then we also added JavaScript minification when debug mode is off, which is going to be true when we publish this out to the internet. So now we get to actually change the game. The game logic right now is you capture a pawn and it respawns somewhere else. We're going to keep track of the pawn's age, and when it gets old enough, it's going to transform into a bishop, which is just my evil plan to create this game. So let's go do that right now. Promote enemy pawns. It's called promotions. Pawn promoting into a bishop. That's why it's called promote. So I've put promote enemy pawns here in the in progress column. Now we're rolling. Let's do that. For those of you who want to try this game, you can browse to chesswiz.tv and then click arcade at the top and try it out. So, what do we need to do to make this possible? We need a piece. Every piece needs to have an age. No, not in common. Let's make, I'm adding a new file here called enemy. I know you can't see the menu. Enemy. And an enemy is going to be a kind of piece. I'll make that a capital P. So now let's add that to our bundler. before we go any further. Just after we add piece, we can add an enemy. Capitalizing that while we're at it. Okay. Build that, because otherwise it won't be included. We have a new enemy. To build an enemy, you need to pass in everything that you do when you build a piece. Because an enemy is a piece. So you pass in the type, the color, the X and the Y. And the first thing it does is it calls piece, the piece constructor. And passes in the same things. And then later it will return that thing. So now we'll make enemies instead of pieces, and this is JavaScript inheritance. What it's going to do is create a new piece, which is an enemy, and then return that. So now we can make new enemies, and they will be pieces. And I think I can prove that by going to my spawn function, which spawns new pieces, and I can just say, I'm making new enemies now, and there will be no difference. Reloading, see if it works. Crashes, of course. Enemy is not defined. I'm missing something because I said enemy, and I am referencing enemy.js. So there is no enemy.js here. It's not being loaded. Why not? Build, run, try again. Enemy's not defined. Why not? Oh, because I'm loading common/enemy, and this should be Uprising. You know, it'd be nice if it was like, that's not an existing path. Let's try it now. Bam. Okay, so now this is an enemy, not a piece. And an enemy is a piece. There's no difference. The difference is an enemy has an age, which we will now demonstrate. Enemies have ages. Check that out. As soon as you create an enemy, it says my current age is the tick of the global clock manager. And now every enemy has an age. And what I'm actually going to do is say when the enemy is captured, obviously I need to call something. I need to destroy that enemy, which is actually happening. Let's go look at the captured code. It says when an enemy is captured. See that? Enemy is captured right there. So we're going to call I think this pieces array should be called enemies now. So let's try search and replace pieces into enemies. Place all. Done. Great. P. Now let's for each E in enemies. No, let's not do that. It's going to be so annoying changing all that stuff. Enemies captured. So that dot enemies E. No, still P. Okay, I'll change it to E because P makes no sense anymore. E, P. Whoa, that's I. E instead of P. E. E. Dot. Captured. Now I need something called captured in here. The web page is going to say ow when you capture something. Will it work? No, it's going to crash. Captured is not a function. Yes, it is. Enemies e.captured. So let's put a breakpoint there and see exactly what I'm trying to call captured on. Let's go capture something. That is a thing of piece. It's a piece. It's a piece. That's suspicious. And captured is undefined. Oh. I think that I need to put this function inside here. In order for it to get returned by the object. I don't think assigning it to the prototype is good enough. Let's Let's try again. Hit that again. Yep, now it's a function that says alert out. So we're going to alert out. Ow! That's a big breakthrough, by the way. I am so happy that that now works. We can now say ow when a piece is captured. So now we can do anything we want with that piece. The first thing we're going to do, of course, is to emit the age onto, I guess we'll just alert it without quotes. We'll say, how old was that thing? Ready? How old was it? It was 0. That's not good. It was 106. That means it was created at tick 106. That's not really the age, is it, guys? 223. That was not the age. Add sounds, says DB Razor. The age is actually the created tick. So now that's all I can really store because I don't want to update the age of everything all the time. So I'm going to alert the current tick minus created tick. And that's going to be how long it was since I captured it. Check it out. Capturing quickly. 132 ticks. Only 54 ticks. Quicker, 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 quicker. 80, 97. Now let's try a long time. Oh, it's taking me so long to capture you. It's going to be like 200. 226. So this is actually how long it takes to capture the pawn. 108. 61. So I don't like doing this math because what if I do it wrong? So I'm going to make a little function called that.age. And it's going to return this. Okay. So now I can alert that.age and get the age. I assume this will work the same. Let's just test it because I love playing this game. 79 and bam, 60. It only took me 1 second to catch that guy. Okay, now I've got an age. Now what do? We make it transform into a bishop. I actually want a function called loop. Oh, I'm going to lean back as I do this coding. Loog. This function will be called every time the world loop is called. This is like the logic for the thing. Bam. That's going to call a loop on all of the, so this is my main world loop that runs once every frame, which is 60 times a second. Every time it's going to loop through all the enemies and call a loop on all of them. And here it's going to go like this. So this is going to be like something that's running constantly. And I'll prove that by going by updating the div with its age. Look at that. That's how old the thing is. And let's take the alert out. Let's take the alert out now. Check it out. There it is, right over there is the time. And back to 0, back to 0, back to 0, back to 0. Is that cool or what? I am tracking the age of this pawn. So this is, obviously time is important in this game. You need to capture that pawn quickly or it will become a bishop. So let's actually add that really soon now. Let's add it right now. Question from DB Razor: will the enemies be able to hurt or damage you if you move where you could be captured? That's a cool idea, but no. That's not my plan. It's nice of you to ask that, but that's not my plan. Because after a bishop, it's going to become a rook, and then pretty soon there will be nowhere safe to move. And it's more fun to actually move around a lot, because it's an arcade game. So you don't want to have a bunch of no-no squares. Let's put some constants in here. The enemies have an upgrade time. How long does it take? This should probably be in the main globals here. Uprising globals. How many ticks until the enemy turns into a bishop? Well, 60 ticks is 1 second. So we're going to say it's just 2 seconds, which is too quick. So let's say 2.5 seconds. In 2.5 seconds, no, let's just say 2 seconds. In 2.5 seconds of gameplay time, the enemy will upgrade from a pawn. That's not the right word. To a bishop. So let's code that so that that actually happens. I think I'll use an init function to set the initial upgrade. Next upgrade tick to be the created tick plus enemy promotion time, which is going to be enemy promotion ticks. I'm renaming everything as I type them. So it's 120 ticks until an enemy is promoted, and I'll just initialize that thing to 0, even though it's going to be set right away. Because I'm going to call that .init just before returning it, which is pretty bad for the constructor to init itself. But I do want to init it every time, so why not? I mean, how bad can it be? This is not going to explode just because I did that. But really, whoever's calling the constructor should also call init. Even better, this code should just be right here and here. No, it shouldn't. Yeah, it should. It doesn't need an init function anymore. So the loop function says every tick, I'm going to say if this.age is greater than or equal to the next upgrade tick, then or go. So I'm using alerts just to see that everything is working. And that is when it's going to update there. So every 2.5 seconds now, I don't need an init function. Every 2.5 seconds, it's going to be created, and then it's going to say the next time I upgrade is in, not called upgrade, it's called promotion. The next time I promote is in enemy promotion ticks away from now, and then loop is going to say, is my age? Age. This isn't quite right, because it's going to promote again. It needs to promote multiple times from a bishop to a rook, etc. So the problem is I'm subtracting out clock manager tick here. Again, getting kind of confused here. The age starts out at 0. Oh, next upgrade tick just needs to increase by the enemy promotion ticks, and that's going to fix everything. So first it's going to be 2.5 seconds or 150 frames, and then once that is hit, then it's going to say go, 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 and it's going to say next time I hit is that many frames away again. And I won't use alerts because they have to be dismissed by the keyboard, and that slows everything down. So So let's try that. So when I so when it got to 150 is when it started showing stuff. Not when it got to 120, which is right because that's my global is 120. Let's put that over there. That's my global 120. So it showed up, but why did it continue showing up? It should have not. It should have stopped updating itself. Oh, thank you, JavaScript. I call it promotion tick here, but then I update the wrong variable name. So as soon as I capture it, nothing happens. And nothing happens. But after 2 seconds, bam, 230. That's kind of a weird number. 350. It's adding 120 each time, 470. So that's good. Oh, it's not adding, showing the age, is it? It's showing the age. Let's try it without ever capturing anything. This should show 120, and then it should show 240. And then it should show 360. See, this is the upgrade. It's showing its age at each upgrade, so that's working. So now I capture and it should show 120 again. But instead it never updates again. Oh, 580. 700, so. So it's almost like next promotion tick. Let's put a breakpoint. This isn't quite right. Let's run in debug mode here and see what's going on exactly. In the enemy, let's look at the constructor of the enemy. So the first enemy is constructed, and created tick is going to be 0. Right? Yeah. The second constructor is hit. It's constructing a new one here. Created tick is undefined. Now created tick is 274. Next promotion tick is 394. So we did add 120. So now let's go into the loop. And let's see what this dot age. This dot age is 0. Because it should be that dot age. I can't believe that would cause this weird behavior though. $120, $120, $120, $120. Nope, it's not working. Oh, I didn't refresh this, didn't save or something. Refresh this page. Now it says if that dot age. And wait till this is 240, which is 242. Okay. Now I'm going to capture. Now the next time it should say 120, and it's not doing that. So let's see what it's doing here. That dot age is 223 already. So that dot next promotion tick is 599. Why is it so high? Oh, I shouldn't add the created tick in. So this is a logic error. I need to start out at the next promotion tick is just 120 every time. Because this is actually the number of ticks from its current age. So not from the beginning of the game. So now that I've fixed that logic, hope you followed that. If you didn't, that's okay. You can just remember that I fixed it right then. 120 is the first. 240, it's upgrading right now. Oh, it's upgrading, 360. Now I take it. And now it's upgrading back to 120. Okay, great. Take it. Goes to 120, and it goes to 240. So it's tracking the age of each new one. So now it's been captured, so it's going to go back to 120. Thumbs up. Now let's make it actually, instead of just drawing on the debug div, which is dumb, let's make it change its type. So that's going to make it a bishop. And I expect it to just turn into a bishop right now. Bam! This is why we did all that work originally, because all of a sudden it just becomes a bishop. Instantly without any programming for bishops. Because I did all that work in the first 2 episodes. The first 2 episodes were slower because of that. So now we want to say what? going to start with piece type.pawn. And it's going to turn into a bishop. And it's going to turn into a rook. I'm skipping knight because the player is a knight. And it's going to turn into a queen. This is so going to work. And it turns into a king. So the enemies are going to go from pawn, bishop, rook, queen, and king. So how do I link that array over to my actual enemy here? I don't want an array. I want an object. That's the difference. And this pawn is going to be the 0th. And then 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. So this doesn't make a lot of, I mean, it's a little bit redundant to say all this because obviously no, this isn't very good. This isn't very good either. Let's think about JavaScript objects and the way they work. Let's think about this. Is this Visual Basic VB free or pro? Ask Beats by Death in the chat. This is Visual Studio Express, so it's free. It's not Visual Basic though. It's Visual Studio. I need to think up how this is going to work. I've got it will work as an array. Array is better. But then I have to be at a certain index. That dot type equals the promotion types. I'll make a function called promote. It's good to have lots of functions. And function promote is going to do these things. If the age is more than the next promotion tick, then you promote. And when you promote, here's what you do. You say your first you say that your promotion index goes up by 1, which means you're now the next piece in the list. Then you set your type to be the promotion types of your new index, which is now going to be bishop. Then you set your tick properly. So this will work properly. I'm not real thrilled with the new variable. This is why I spent so long thinking about this, by the way. So explain what I'm thinking about. I don't want this thing stored here. Obviously, it goes 0, and then it goes 1, and then it goes 2, then it goes 3. And it's kind of dumb to be storing something going 0, 1, 2, 3. I mean, can't you just keep track of that somewhere else? Especially when the piece already has these types. But the types are in a different order. King is 0, queen is 1, and there's a knight, which is 4. So I can't just store 2 for rook, because I don't exactly know. I mean, I could do a lookup. I could say, okay, now I'm a 2, so that's a rook. So then I come in here and which one's the rook? And I find that, and then I add 1 to that and say, okay, now I'm a queen. But I guess it makes sense. I guess I can get over using an actual index for that to keep track of the index. So now everything will work. Watch it change to a bishop. Bam. Watch it crash. Cannot access the property of undefined enemy promotion types, enemy promotion types. That should actually work. Why isn't that defined? I love globals. Don't you love globals? They're so beautiful. It shouldn't be types. It should be type because it's not. It's just an array. You don't have to pluralize your arrays. Kind of weird that it's not defined. I think maybe. Maybe I'm bundling in the wrong order. Nope, globals gets bundled first and then enemy, so that's not it. So why isn't this defined when it's clearly created over here? Piece type is not defined as an earlier error. Okay. That's actually the problem. Piece type is not defined, and that's because of the bundle ordering. I'm saying, okay, here's my Uprising globals, and then here's pieces. Now, in order to make this perfect, pieces would have to be defined first, and then globals, which references the pieces, would be defined, and then enemy, which references globals, which references pieces. But I think that's a little convoluted. I don't want it to be that brittle, so I'm just going to move the promotion type into the enemy class. So these are things that have to do with enemies. They do this: pawn, bishop, rook, queen, king. So now one globals file doesn't contain all that. That's fine with me. Bishop, bishop, yes. Rook. Say now, rook. Queen. Queen is up. King. Bam, it's a king. Undefined crash. It's just gone now. Wow, cool. It works. Happens kind of fast, too. That rook look a little weird to you? Make it bigger. Take that king quick. The rook looks a little weird to me. Everything looks 1 pixel too high. And a little small. And a little to the left. Yeah. I can fix that super smart, super fast, super smart. You got me confused, beats. Whoa, draw a line on it is not what I meant to do. I want to select these pieces, move them over by 1 pixel and down by 1 pixel. Save that. Now let's take a look. Yeah, it doesn't look wrong now, does it? Still might be a little high. It's pretty good. Take it quick. So now I'm going to say that piece promotion is done-ish. It's promoting, obviously. Yep. Pieces are promoting. Guys, the pieces are promoting. So you have to get to it before it becomes a king. That's why this is called Uprising. The enemy pieces are uprising against you and becoming king. So that's now in the done column. So now we will add level ups with difficulty increases. That's the last thing for this episode. But then of course we can pull in the lose condition. Let's do the lose conditions as well, and maybe we'll try to do that as well, but we'll see if we get that far. So this is a great stopping point for like a pause, just for me to catch my breath and break the YouTube video into 2 parts, because now we have new functionality, which is the pawn promotes. So the next thing we're going to add, let's go full screen here for a bit. The next thing we're going to add is levels. So on level 1, there's just 1 enemy piece on the board. You go capture it. But very quickly, we're going to hit level 2, level 3, level 4, and more bad guys will appear on the board. So that's going to be added in part 2 of this episode, episode 3, part 2. So stay tuned for that. It'll be just 5 minutes, which I'll now set up right here. It'll be like 5 minutes on my timer, because I'm a coder. So that's how I use my timer. All right, I will see you guys soon. Thanks for watching.